Oh, listen, don't play that game with me. We're talking here about energy production. Oil and natural gas are energy production. And the facts of the matter are this president has reduced our ability to be energy independent. And you're sitting here telling me that that increases our energy security. It looks just the opposite to me. It seems to me that you're recommending the European playbook, which left them dependent on foreign nations, left them dependent ultimately on hostile actors, and that's what you're trying to replicate here again in the United States. I just don't understand why this course of action is being recommended, why your administration's pursuing it. I also don't understand why you would shut down pipelines that cancel thousands of good-paying American energy jobs. I mean, why is that a healthy energy policy for this country?
Okay. So you just saw that clip. And if that didn't grab your attention, I don't know what will. That right there is Senator Josh Hawley putting the Biden administration on the spot over American energy policy. And honestly, the answers he's getting back are completely disconnected from the reality most Americans are living. I'll be straight with you. I'm not here to wave a flag for any political party. But watching this, I see a man asking serious questions about national security, American jobs, and energy independence, and getting carefully rehearsed non-answers in return. This is about whether your heating bill goes up, whether your job exists, whether this country can stand on its own without going cap in hand to Saudi Arabia or China. Those questions deserve real answers. So we're going to watch the full video together. I'll break it all down, and I want your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Hawley is hitting the nail on the head, or does the administration have a point? Let's have a real conversation down there. If you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe, because this is exactly what we cover on this channel. Real policy, real consequences, no fluff.
Hawley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. Assistant Secretary Light, if I could just start with you. In the years leading up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, almost a year old now, many European governments prioritized what they called the climate objectives. I'm not sure that their policies actually improve their environment, but that was their surmise. Climate objectives over energy abundance. And in particular, they prioritized cheap energy from an authoritarian regime over energy independence. Do you think that playbook executed by governments in Europe is something we ought to be doing in the United States?
I think that the clear lesson is that no country should be beholden to one supplier for its energy sources or a very large proportion of its energy sources, and that energy security is built on energy diversification. I think that energy diversification is at the backbone of U.S. energy policy, and so I don't see any risk that the United States will follow suit in that respect.
Well, you say energy security is built on energy diversification. I would have thought energy security would be based on energy independence. Am I wrong about that?
I think it's independence, but I also think that it's not just one source of energy, because things can go wrong. No one should put all of their chips on sort of one marker when it comes to energy security. So I think that to have as diverse a supply as possible, while still looking at other goals like climate goals, is a very good path forward for countries to take, and it's something that the United States wants to support other countries in helping to do.
Well, why wouldn't we put our chips on American energy? And we've got various sources of energy in this country. Why wouldn't we put our chips there?
I think we are putting our chips.
No, we're not. We're producing less oil and gas in this country than we were previously. The president, when he came to office, his first day in office, he imposed a moratorium on oil and gas leases on federal land. Since then, he has leased the fewest acres of federal land for oil and natural gas since the Truman administration. Why are we shutting down American oil and natural gas production, taking away American jobs and making ourselves more dependent on foreign sources of energy? I don't understand this policy.
Well, the U.S. will produce a record amount of both crude oil and natural gas in 2023, even higher than the spikes pre-COVID levels. And the president is actively encouraging U.S. oil producers to increase production and reinvest their profits back into production rather than buying back stocks. And I think that's the right policy to pursue.
He's doing that while he is shutting down the ability to lease federal land for oil and natural gas, the fewest acres of federal land leased since the Truman administration. He's boasted about how he hopes, he just said in the State of the Union, that we may not need American oil after another 10 years. I mean, what kind of a message does that send? Is that energy security?
So any questions about leasing on federal land, I would direct to the Department of Interior, not the Department of Energy, sir.
Oh, listen, don't play that game with me. We're talking here about energy production. Oil and natural gas are energy production. And the facts of the matter are this president has reduced our ability to be energy independent. And you're sitting here telling me that increases our energy security. It looks just the opposite to me. It seems to me that you're recommending the European playbook, which left them dependent on foreign nations, left them dependent ultimately on hostile actors, and that's what you're trying to replicate here again in the United States. I just don't understand why this course of action is being recommended, why your administration's pursuing it. I also don't understand why you would shut down pipelines that cancel thousands of good-paying American energy jobs. I mean, why is that a healthy energy policy for this country?
With all due respect, sir, I really don't see much of a comparison between where Europe was before the outbreak of the war and their energy mix and where they were getting energy from and where the United States is today.
Well, let me just ask you, on the topic of dependence on authoritarian regimes, about China. China is one of the largest processors of the materials that serve as the building blocks for many of the so-called green energy transition that the administration is pursuing. According to the IEA, China processes 40% of the world's copper, more than 30% of the nickel in the world, 60% of cobalt, 60% of lithium, and more than 80% of rare earth minerals. Now, in light of that, many commentators have suggested that the United States is even more dependent on China for key components of solar power, panels, wind turbines, and batteries than Europe was on Russia in the lead up to the invasion of Ukraine. So I say again, in light of all of that, don't you think that this administration's climate agenda is making us more dependent on China while we lessen our reliance on our own domestic energy sources?
Well, sir, as I said in my testimony before, I think you're absolutely right. China does own too much of the critical minerals supply chain from the beginning, from ownership of resources through processing and through the creation of modules and other sort of parts of clean energy components.
So why would you want to make us more dependent on them?
Use the tools that the Congress has given us, sir, to make sure that we diversify the supply chains, reshore as many of them, and create sound relationships with non-Chinese suppliers. That is absolutely a top priority of this administration.
For heaven's sake, here's what you've done. You came to office. You took us from being an energy independent nation to being an energy dependent nation. You have made us more dependent. Now this administration's gone begging to OPEC and dictators all around the world. You have made us less energy secure. Now you're making us energy dependent on China. You're canceling good paying American jobs. It's a disaster, and all the while increasing the cost of energy across this nation. It is an absolute disaster, and I can't imagine why, in light of what happened in Ukraine, we would want to replicate those disastrous policies here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, now you've seen the whole thing. Here's what I think. Hawley came prepared. He didn't show up with vague talking points. He brought specific numbers. The Truman administration comparison on federal land leases. The IA figures on China's grip on critical minerals. Copper, cobalt, lithium, rare earths. That's not grandstanding. That's someone who did their homework and wanted real answers. And what did he get? He got told to go talk to the Department of the Interior. On an energy question. At an energy hearing. Come on. Here's the part that really got me, though. The Assistant Secretary actually agrees that China controls too much of the critical minerals supply chain. She said it herself. So the administration admits China has a stranglehold on the very materials their green energy agenda depends on. And yet the policy just keeps going full steam ahead. How does that add up? Hawley's core point is simple and genuinely hard to argue with. You cannot replace dependence on one foreign power with dependence on another and call it progress. Europe got hooked on cheap Russian gas, told themselves it made sense economically and for the climate, and when Russia turned the tap off, they were completely exposed. Now we're building an entire energy infrastructure around materials that China controls? That's not an energy transition. That's just changing who holds the leash. And the jobs piece. Real pipelines. Real projects. Canceled. Those aren't abstract policy decisions. Those are real people who showed up to work one day and found out their livelihoods had been signed away. Now, to be fair, the record oil and gas production numbers for 2023 are real and worth acknowledging. But here's the thing. That production is happening despite federal leasing restrictions, not because of them. Private land drilling picked up the slack. So you can't take credit for production numbers while limiting the federal leasing that would sustain them long term. You can't have it both ways. And that State of the Union comment Hawley raised, where the president suggested America might not need its own oil in 10 years. I'm sorry, but energy infrastructure takes decades to build. You can't wish fossil fuels away in 10 years and replace them with solar panels built from Chinese lithium. That's not a policy. That's a wish list. Look, I believe in a clean energy future. I genuinely do. But getting there requires honesty about the trade-offs, protection of American workers during the transition, and real energy independence. not swapping one foreign dependency for another. Hawley said something that sticks with me, that this administration took America from being energy independent to energy dependent. Whether you like him or not, that statement deserves a serious answer. Not a deflection, not a redirect, a real, honest answer. Until they provide one, I think the American people have every right to keep asking exactly the questions Josh Hawley was asking in that room. That's my take. Let me know yours in the comments. Share this if you think more people need to see this exchange. And I'll catch you in the next one.